So Rajaji, thank you firstly for taking your time out for this conversation. Really appreciate it. Jai Jagat aapko.
Jai Jagat, Jai Jagat.
So yeah, this is so nice to have you in this conversation, and there is so much we could speak about. I think top of the mind, what I would like to get started with is with the current situation, right? So where we are right now, और अभी देश में जो चल रहा है, how do we make sense of it? क्या हो रहा है, क्यों हो रहा है, यहाँ तक हम कैसे पहुंचे? How did we reach here? What happened? Where did we go
तो
wrong?
दो
Yeah.
दो बातें हैं मेरे मन में. There are two
Yeah.
issues that are coming to my mind when you raise that issue. You see, when COVID arrived, COVID is one thing that is the discussion of the day. So when COVID arrived, I was in Armenia. We were walking from Delhi to Geneva, and we were halfway through, and suddenly COVID came. And to be frank, I was initially shocked, but then I was happy. Why I was happy? I said, look, COVID has come to wake us up. COVID has come to shake you up. So this waking up, shaking up, this doesn't happen through a Jai Jagat Yatra. See, Jai Jagat Yatra is too small to wake up the world, shake up the world. So I said, look, something very serious need to happen if the world need to wake up. And so in my heart, I became suddenly happy, started speaking to people, telling that, look, COVID has come to tell us, look, the development model, the economic model that we are pursuing are not going to last long. So this is a warning that we need to change our way of thinking, our way of doing, etc., etc. And we started writing to people saying that, look, now we should speak about ceasefire all over the world, because this is not the time to fight between people. This is a time to see how the world can be reorganized. We wrote to the United Nations saying that please ask the rich countries to forgive the debt of poor countries, because this is not the time for them to repay the debt. It is the time to fight COVID and reorganize their economy, etc. So I began with a kind of an upbeat, in the sense, come on, now this will not be taken lightly by the leadership of the world. They will understand that this is a message. Of course, the world was already speaking about 10 years to go, etc. So people knew that if we continue the same path, same model, within 10 years, the world is going to be in difficulty, crisis. So COVID was a kind of a wake-up call to my mind. And then waited for some time, started speaking to people, creating enthusiasm in the mind of people, etc. But then soon I realized that people are not waking up. On the contrary, they are trying to accelerate the same model, because now let us sell more coal and let us sell more iron ore and let us sell this and make more money because the economy is in crisis. So rather than reorganizing the economy and reorganizing the development model, people started pursuing the same model in a very, very powerful way. So then I thought, okay, this is not waking up people. So that was one thing that I am still playing with. Why did that happen? Why even such a huge crisis couldn't wake up people in this world? The second thing I'm struggling with is about the leadership model that is emerging one after the other. We found recently we saw how Trump behaved. He, in spite of getting defeated in an election, he's refusing to go out of White House. You saw Putin wanting to be there till 2036, and he's doing everything to destroy his opposition to stay there. You saw in China, the leader says, I am a lifelong leader here. Now there is no more election or change. And Erdogan in Turkey is trying to do similar things. So you see a model of leadership emerging globally that is very disturbing. People, we thought with with advancement of knowledge, advancement of scientific knowledge, people will behave differently. People will become more enlightened. People will become more interested in introducing new values. But what is happening is one after the other, including India, this model is emerging where I know everything. I can fix everything, and I don't have to talk to anybody. I will do what I feel like doing. This attitude is coming, and then you look at other kind of organizations and see whether are they giving answer to these problems. The voluntary organizations, social movements, etc. Are we answering these questions by behaving differently? Not so much, not so much. So uh, we we only have a small kingdom, so we behave the same way in our kingdom. If we get an opportunity to control a larger kingdom, probably we'll behave the same way like these people are behaving. So on one side, lack of leadership, complete absence of leadership, a leadership with imagination, leadership with some kind of a forward-looking ideas. And on the other side, the absolute resistance to any change. It's like this is a model that we have accepted, and then this is how we are going to drive this world. The planet will remain or not remain is none of my concern. So these are two things that I am reflecting on. And why is it happening? Why human beings are so adamant? Why are we not willing to bring about change? Why can't we see through the problems that we are facing and say, look, these problems cannot be solved by driving the world the same way, but we need to change and really engage in a process of discussing what is that change that need to be brought about. What is that change that will give justice to millions of people? What is that change that will make governance a non-violent process? What is that educational process that will create sensitivity in the minds of young people? So rather than rethinking about the entire agenda, we say that this is the right way and we will continue to do this. And that is worrying me a lot. That means even the greatest challenges that we face, humankind is not willing to change, and we are completely sold off this idea of making money at any cost. Nationally, I was very concerned, and I kept speaking about the degradation that is coming into the political world. Uh, of course, the politicians are trying to control the social work world by amending this act and that act. So probably they will control it the way they want to control. But the political world, I mean, buying and selling MLAs has become such a common thing now. Uh, After ruling the state for 15 years, uh, the power went to Congress from BJP in Madhya Pradesh. And in 1.5 years' time, they were able to buy 21 MLAs back into their fold and recreate their own government. I mean, it's not happening in one place. Same thing is happening in many states in Northeast India. This level of politics that uh, I need to be in power at any cost, and I will do everything. I will spend money. I will buy people. I will corrupt people. I will do anything in order to remain in power. See, up to election, we faced it all these years. People were bribing, giving alcohol, giving sadi, giving money to people to get vote, and that we have seen happening, and we were all very concerned about it. But this level, that even after getting elected, now you don't stay with your party, you will change over, because that is where you get a power, and power will bring you money, and that money can be used again for fighting election. So this level of degradation in politics is worrying me a lot. And from that kind of a political system, what kind of change you can expect? So globally, nationally, this is a very, very, very difficult time. More than the COVID, I am concerned about how people are behaving uh, in front of this crisis, right? So I recently, I don't use such harsh words, but then I told someone that shamelessness has come to its peak, and one used to be feel ashamed of doing bad things, wrong things, selling and buying. elected representatives, etc., saying lies in public meeting, so now you don't have to feel any shame. You can say what you want to say. You can do what you want to do. And this is worrying me, that this is a culture in which young people are getting drawn to. All these political parties have their followers, and these followers are admiring their leaders for doing what they are doing. So if this is the kind of society that is going to come uh, because of the kind of leadership that we are providing, that is worrisome to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one reason why I want at least the social movements and social organization to behave very differently, and in fact do introspection about how they are behaving, how they are doing things, how they can do things different, etc., etc. Even at a micro level, if they can get set examples, probably that will be a way forward. So this is something I thought I should begin with expressing. Yeah.
Sure, Rajaji. Thank you for sharing that. I think that gives me 2, 3 questions, and you can choose which of these you would like to respond to. I think one is that a lot of these leaders were voted in power by us, right? Like I can totally see how the middle class powered in India the government. Like I could see my father being completely optimistic and
Sorry.
feeling that okay, this is the moment, golden moment for India. When we vote the Congress out, we vote the BJP in, and there is obviously something about people themselves, either I don't know, being greedy or getting swayed, or maybe they're even wise. I don't know how do you read that, but basically that people have also willed, have brought and willed such leaders into power, right? And so what is the people's role in, what have we fallen for? I think that is a question. And particularly because I come from the middle class, I would love your reflections on what the middle class has, kind of the privileged middle class, which is the beneficiary in some places also of this. And, what have they fallen for? So one was about people that I wanted to ask. The second was, you said that now social organizations need to set an example and behave differently. And I would kind of also request you to share a bit about how do you feel in a time when there is so much pressure from the government and from everywhere. Uh, what should then movements and civil society really do that can set an example for them? So I think these 2 questions for me, and you could choose to answer
Yeah,
any
yeah,
way
yeah,
out of
yeah.
both.
I
Yeah.
think both the issues are very very important, Abhishek bhai, because on one side, see this degradation in political field is a concern, because I'm in South India now. It's like how people speak very harsh language against uh, Brahmins, for example. This is this anti-Brahmin thing. It's like really pointing to a caste and then attacking it, and how others will speak about Dalits. Uh, and then how people speak about Muslims in one part of the country, and how the Muslims will speak about others. It's like see, in a situation where people are not able to grow into national leadership. It's like because I don't have the capacity uh, to imagine a nation, or a world, or a planet. What is important for me is to cut everything to the size that I can handle, right? So most of the leaders are now into not to challenge themselves and become a national leader or a global leader. Mahatma Gandhi became a global leader because he could really think of the planet and survival of the planet and future of the planet, etc., etc. And he could speak about Sarvodaya, well-being of all. So that was one kind of leadership we had in this country. But then now what you see is people wanting to cut it into pieces, because that's all what I can grow. I can only be leader of my caste, and or my subcaste. I can't even become leader of my caste, so I will divide that into subcaste, and then
Right.
suddenly become a leader of that subcaste. and then see how do I use that subcaste identity as a bargaining point for getting a place in the politics. And if I can't do that, then I will be a champion of my religion, because then I can get all my religious people around me and then use that as a point for bargaining my power. So what is happening is, in the absence of people's capacity to grow to national level, international level, we have come to this new politics called uh, regionalism and casteism and communalism, etc. Even around language, somebody can fight Hindi and you can win the election, like that. What happens in South India now, in some part of South India. So we are now trying to see where am I comfortable and how far I can go, and how do I cut the society to the size of my imagination, my capacity. And this is a very, very dangerous thing, because in this world where the planet is in crisis, we are looking for people who can cross these borders, the border of caste, border of religion, border of nation, and think of a planet, right? Like Armstrong and Aldrin said when they landed in moon. They said, look, from looking from here, we don't see any scratch on the face of Mother Earth. It is just one piece, one piece in harmony. But the politicians have come and cut it into pieces, like what they did in Africa. You have made straight lines and everything becomes country. So we have messed up this world to an extent that uh, the planetary crisis cannot be addressed. The planetary crisis is poverty. Planetary crisis is climate change. Planetary crisis is inequality. Planetary crisis is war and violence. So this planetary crisis can be handled only when you think from that angle, and we lose that. That is why initially I said even Trump and Putin and all of them put together, they can only speak about their country and defeat neighboring countries and get more land into their country, etc., etc. So I think this is a big problem of the size of leadership. The Mahatma Gandhis and Nelson Mandelas are missing. It's a tragedy basically that why people want to be so small. If at all you want to be something, why don't you want to be big? Right? To imagine big, do big, grow big. Why is it so difficult? I don't know. So that is one thing that we need to see. Can young people move beyond this limitations of wanting to be a leader at any cost by making hate speech? If you can just make hate speech. I see some of the videos, whether the hate comes from left or the hate comes from right, for me, they're all hate. Just because the hate comes from left, it doesn't become beautiful. And the hate comes from right, becomes bad. No, I don't see it that way. Hate is hate. And whether hate comes from the Muslim community or Hindu community or from the Dalit community or the Brahmin community, I think hate is hate. And you are not going to contribute to build a better society by spreading it day and night, by speaking this language. You may influence your audience who are sitting in front of you, and they will clap for you, and you will feel that you are doing a great thing. But one need to understand this is a very, 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 very stupid game in which many of us have got into. Now, pleasing the audience in front of you without thinking what is going to be the consequences of what you say, what you do. Now, just to please some people sitting in front of you. And that is where the civil society need to play a role. Only yesterday I was writing a small article about foreign contribution and civil society. What I'm trying to argue, Abhishek, is okay. This I have no problem in foreign fund. It's like I think I believe in Jai Jagat. Everybody can help everybody, and I have seen how very ordinary people selling postcards collect money to support flood victims in Kerala or in Bihar. So I have no problem with it. And this is coming through a real system. It's like there is a home ministry, there is a registration process. And so the politicians should stop speaking about foreign money as if it is being dropped from the helicopter, right? They are propagating, oh, all these people get foreign money and they are doing this, they are doing that. This is as if somebody is coming in bringing foreign money in a suitcase and giving it to you. So see, this idea, very ordinary people who don't know what is this foreign contribution, what is this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, how voluntary organizations are controlled by Home Ministry, how they have to audit their account and submit it to the Home Ministry every year, without educating people about how this act operates. So there is very little chance that somebody can do crooked things, unless they are committed to doing crooked things. So I think in that kind of a situation, rather than making propaganda against voluntary organizations and social organizations like All Foreign Hands, and then suddenly you close up Amnesty International, then you ask Greenpeace to wind up and go, then you ask funding agencies to wind up and go. See, when you have so much control, creating this misunderstanding about voluntary organizations and their role is only because you feel uncomfortable when others become popular. You see, the popular base of social movements are frightening you, so you want to finish them off. There was a time when the government used to look upon social movements. When Vinoba began land gift movement, Nehru was so happy that at least a social movement like Bhudan movement can take care of the land reform agenda by walking through nook and corner of this country. The many examples where voluntary organizations were inspiration of government, and the voluntary organizations began, and then government followed many programs. The first BDO in the world, in this country, was M.V. Swami, who later on became member of parliament. But then he was a voluntary organization person. And he was picked from the voluntary organization to become the BDO, because they said, okay, if these people can do such wonderful work, why shouldn't they lead the block development offices, etc., etc. So I'm only trying to say, look, I mean, we have created a kind of a cloud against voluntary organizations, civil society organizations, and as a result, many people look at civil society organizations with suspicion. And that is the reason many young people don't come closer, because they are already fed with wrong information of a bunch of people making money and comforts for themselves, etc., etc. So I think the foreign contribution, foreign money, etc., need to be explained. And the second argument I am making is, look, out of large number of voluntary organizations, only limited number of them are receiving foreign money. All others are doing good work. See, the many small clubs in the villages and district level organizations, they don't even know there is a thing called foreign money and Foreign Contribution Act. They all do good work. So coloring everybody, every voluntary organization, as if these people are out and out to grab money and make their own fortune, etc. This is a game that the political parties are playing. And in spite of putting together an organization like WANI, Voluntary Action Network of India, we were not able to really answer this. We were not really able to answer this political propaganda in a befitting manner. So that is one area some work need to go. But on the other side, I agree that the arrival of foreign funding agencies also had a negative influence on voluntary sector. When we began, we went to villages to say, look, one handful of wheat every day put into this Sarvodaya Patra so that we can run our ashram. And for many years, I remember in Chambal Valley, we ran our ashram, fed so many people with public contribution. Many youth camps were held because of public contribution. Bridges were built across river because of public contribution. The mass surrender of dacoits with public contribution. So I think the participation of public is missing in many organizations, because they were born in this world of foreign contribution. It's like you became a voluntary organization person in an organization where foreign money was coming. And you
Right.
thought that is how all the voluntary organizations are designed. And you
Right.
got into this idea of, okay, foreign contribution is the only way to get the voluntary organizations going. So this is a mistake that we did. And as a result, people started drawing larger salaries, the lifestyle started changing, and then this started sending a wrong message to the larger world. So I'm not trying to say we didn't make mistakes. We also made mistakes, and these mistakes are to be corrected. But at this point of time, when the government is trying to tighten your neck, don't worry. This is what I'm trying to say. Look, we have a culture. India has a culture of social work depending on the society. People will take care of you
Mm-hmm.
if you take care of people. So I think when you have challenge, like when you have COVID challenge, this is a time to become global leaders and say, look, we need to come together to fight COVID. And this is also part of the climate crisis, etc., etc. Similarly, when there is a huge challenge in front of voluntary sector because the politicians have decided to destroy voluntary sector, this is a time for us to stand up and say, look, we are not here just because of foreign support. We are here because of our commitment to the society, and we know how to go about. So I was discussing with my friends in the during the last few weeks about a four pillar approach.
Mm-hmm.
We said, okay, local leadership, local politics, local economy, and local funding. I call it
Mm-hmm.
grassroots leadership. People
Nice.
need to come from the bottom because it is their problem. They need to deal with it. Local politics, we have left panchayat and gram sabha to politicians. That cannot be done because that is a real sarkar, tisri sarkar, and this tisri sarkar need to be strengthened. So all our trained workers need to take responsibility so that panchayat will not remain corrupt and an
Mm-hmm.
agent of political parties. Local economy, grassroots economy, that is the only way for people to survive, because in COVID you found people are coming back, and coming back to what? So unless there is a local economy, grassroots economy, how can they survive?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, grassroots funding. So if you have grassroots leadership, grassroots politics, grassroots economic activities, and grassroots funding, voluntary organization can really say, look, foreign fund may give us an additional support. You may do 5 youth camps rather than doing one when you have
Mm-hmm.
additional money. But not having additional money should not cripple you. So
Right.
that is where the voluntary civil society organization need to be careful now. So I think this is a very challenging time because of COVID, because of the attitude of the political degradation that I was mentioning, because of the attitude of political parties towards voluntary sector, and any voluntarism in this country. So I think this is very challenging time, but also a time when probably one can find answers and say, look, uh, every challenge is an opportunity. That is a term many people are using now.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we use this challenging time as an opportunity to design something new? So that is how I
Yes.
will I will look at the question that you raised.
Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. Rajaji, before, I'd love to go into what new can be created, and we were talking about young people and what
Mm.
can be done. But before that, I wanted to bring back a conversation you and I had, which I'd like more people to listen to, which was around moral leadership. Because I remember very clearly at one stage you had said that, cultivate moral leadership and moral power, and that civil society also must work on cultivating moral leadership as a way of really building something. And related to that also is the question of goodness, right? Like so there's something that moves you to care for people and to actually do good and dedicate your life. So what is that? Where does that goodness for you come from? Does it come from anger? Does it come from hope? Does it come from empathy? And related to that is also this question of moral leadership, and how can we as young people build moral leadership? uh,
Yeah. I think well in my uh, uh, well when we I my journey was that I started my work in Chambal Valley to deal with violence. And I because I early on, because of my my closeness to Gandhi and Gandhian ideas, I understood violence is a huge problem in the world, and violence of any form need to come to an end. So I began with this work with Subbarao-ji, our respected leader Subbarao-ji. Jayaprakash-ji also came in. So we began with this idea of surrender and rehabilitation of dacoits in Chambal Valley. But then I didn't stop there, and because I understood that this is only one form of violence that we are tackling. But there is another form of violence, that is poverty, exploitation, corruption, injustice, which is rampant in the society. And I soon understood that that form of structural violence is the reason for physical violence. When people get really tired, you take a gun and jump into the ravines, jump into the jungle. You feel that before dying, I want to kill 10 people who did injustice to me. So that revenge, feeling of revenge comes because you were cornered by people in the same society. So I said one need to address this structural problem, structural violence. And that is how I started organizing villagers around their land and livelihood issues. It's like yesterday I was writing an article about land grab, and this is about uh, how many cases are registered in Tamil Nadu on land grab. There was and they had to set up a cell for registering land grab cases, and thousands of cases started pouring in. And who is grabbing whose land? It's always the powerful people grabbing the land of the poor, right? So the powerful people cannot grab the land of the powerful, so they grab the land of the poor. So, and I was telling my friend here that, look, let us send this article to ILC, International Land Coalition, and ANCOC in Manila, because they are the people who are taking up this issue of land grab. So these are the forms of structural violence that we find every day. In Chambal Valley, there are thousands and thousands of acres of land of Adivasis being captured, taken by powerful lobbies coming from outside, because you have the money, you have connection with the officials, and you grab land and you do it legally, illegally, So in such a society, how do you organize people? So mine was basically an extension of dealing with physical violence to structural violence. But soon, traveling across the country, I found this is a big problem in this country. We are proud of an independent nation, but the number of people standing in front of Tahsildar's office, number of people who are standing in front of collector's office, number of people who are touching the feet of forest guard and forest officials, and number of people who are getting evicted in the name of national park, wildlife sanctuaries, coal mines. I said this is something which need to be answered. Otherwise, what is civilization all about? Some people making money and some people building huge structures for themselves, and many people are forced to take their children and family and walk to Ahmedabad and Bombay in search of some food. So for me, I thought when you speak about nation, nationalism, etc., that is a core value. It's like, as long as there is one person facing injustice in my nation, how do I speak about nationalism? Nationalism is not some temple constructed there and some mosque built there, and defeating Pakistan in a war. This is not nationalism. Nationalism is that my mind should say that there is, as long as there is some injustice in my nation, I have difficulty to belong to this nation, and that should happen. If you look back, Mahatma Gandhi said, whenever you contemplate an action, think of the poorest and weakest in your society. See, his talisman was all about the last person, the most deprived person in the society, and that attracted me a lot. And Vivekananda went a step ahead. He said, look, as long as there is a stray dog hungry, my morality, my spirituality is to find food for that dog. Even leave alone. Gandhi is speaking over the last man, but Vivekananda is taking you further to the dog, right? So if you don't have this sensitivity,
Hmm.
then all this social work and spirituality and temple going and all these dramas are just drama. And on top of it, we also say we belong to this great nation and speak about Jagat Guru, etc., etc. I think we live in huge hypocrisy. This is my huge problem now. Indians have learned to live in hypocrisy, and we can shut our eyes to all the injustice that is happening, all the laborers who are walking back to after COVID lockdown. I mean, when you see so much poverty and injustice and corruption happening in this country, what is happening to the energy of the youth of this country?
Hmm.
Why shouldn't they just stand up and say, "Look, I want to clean it up"? In my training program, I will always say, "Look, I mean, uh, when you move into a new house, the first thing you do is to clean it up because you want to live in a clean place. You don't want to live in a dirty place." This is young people are moving into this country called India. Now you want to live in this country. Why don't you clean it up, right? With this dirt in which we live, and we slowly get uh, accustomed to this.
Hmm.
We say, okay, this debt is okay, this corruption is okay, this much corruption is natural, and this injustice is okay. In every society, there will be so much of injustice. This untouchability is okay. This is part of our history. So slowly, rather than challenging those things, imagine the number of young people in this country. They come out one day, the
Hmm.
country is going to be different. But
Hmm.
they're all running after in West Bengal. They are running after the politicians in other states. So this is what I call, when a country will learn to live in hypocrisy,
Hmm. Hmm.
live in contradiction the way we are living now. This
Hmm.
is what happens. I tell my Adivasi friends, my constituency is Adivasis because I was working with them for so many years.
Hmm.
I tell
Hmm.
them, look, you 25,000 of you came and we walked to Delhi, and you saw that Forest Rights Act came, right? As a not just because of your work, but many other people acted, but final blow came from your walk. And then 100,000 people came, 1 lakh people came. You didn't even walk to Delhi. You only walked to Agra, and Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation, Resettlement Act came, and an advisory on land reform also came. See, just because 25,000 people are acting, 1 lakh people are acting, things are changing. Imagine when lakhs of people come out
Hmm. Hmm.
non-violently, saying that, look, we don't want anything. We just want to bring about change in this situation. That we don't want this level of corruption, injustice, and poverty in this country. This need to change, whichever party. I mean,
Hmm.
this is a call of young people to the nation, not to
Hmm.
not to any party. And I
Hmm.
think things can change if if Mahatma Gandhi could organize people to a scale to bring about freedom. I think the potential are everywhere, and so young people need to take this challenge. We you can always say that, why didn't you do it? Why are you now telling us to do this? So we tried. Went around the country, trained young people, sent them back to villages, organized hundreds and thousands of people, walked 6.5 months from one corner of Rajasthan to the one corner of Orissa, then took 25,000 people, 100,000 people. If my age is on the right side, the next one should be 10 lakhs people marching to Delhi with a bigger demand. So if that is where we said, look, I mean, because I was standing on the shoulder of Vinoba Bhave, I could see it from a broader perspective.
Hmm.
Uh, that okay, unless poor people are organized, things are not going to change. Vinobaji was trying to change the heart of the well-to-do people and say, look, give the land away because treat them as your son and daughter and give them some land. So he was on the karuna aspect. And when we came, we said, okay, karuna is good. We should promote this karuna, but probably there should also be some kind of pressure. And that is why we said, okay, along with Karuna, without fighting, using non-violence completely, let us also create pressure on the state to act. So that is how we went that far. But now you have our shoulder to stand up and see things from a much broader perspective and see how a new action can be designed that will take the country um, to greater heights. Why I say this, when we got freedom through non-violence, many other countries also got freedom through non-violence because this had what you call a multiplying effect. It's like uh, this created an atmosphere where people thought, now this is no use holding on to all these countries, give them freedom. Uh, so similarly, uh, if India can demonstrate something because of Mahatma Gandhi's name, Buddha's name, people look to India and not for nuclear power and army power, to learn about peace and non-violence as a powerful instrument for change. And this will be India's contribution. America has much more weapons than you have. Russia has much more weapons than you have. All the arsenal, all the mass destruction instrument, they have 1,560, whereas you have only 300. So that is no match. And they are not going to learn from you about how to make these destructive weapons. Their science is far ahead of us. But when it comes to non-violence as a science, non-violence is a method to change the situation. There is no match to Mahatma Gandhi or Vinoba Bhave or Bhagavan Buddha. So when we have this huge heritage available, why shouldn't we offer this to the world at large? So I think India's contribution, Indian civil society's contribution should be at that level. So there can be a lot of problems, but I see great possibilities for us to really give some kind of a leadership to the planet. And that was the reason why we thought of this Jai Jagat Yatra and went and met some officials in United Nations and told them what is Jai Jagat all about and why Jai Jagat is important, etc. So it was slowly building up, but then unfortunately COVID came and we had to close it down. But we should really, and all of you, some of you who are listening, you will have to play that role to build the agenda of non-violence and peace globally.
Okay, Rajaji, that sounds good. So I had a question, and we can continue, I think, in this for a little more, if that is fine. So as a young person, Rajaji, or now I don't know if I'm anywhere young, but when we look at young people, I think what we are seeing are a couple of things, right? We're seeing addiction to technology. We're seeing mental health as a challenge. We're also seeing very concerned with oneself, kind of almost a self-individualized, like main hu, not so much a part of community, but a lot of individualization. And also willingness, not willing to necessarily go physical. It's only getting more and more virtual now with COVID. Even more, like people don't want to come out and do things and just want to do actions. And also we have been doing some of this online actions and so on, and getting some reasonable, very small numbers, but still like 500 actions to 300 actions and so on. So we are starting to get momentum. But I think the question is, and I feel every generation will have to invent their own answers of what kind of an action will work for their generation, what will mobilize and galvanize that. So I also understand that we have to do that. One question I have is, what are we missing? Is there something that as young people, you would, if you had a broad agenda to say that young people should build these capacities to be able to organize, to be able to do things, what skills, what perspectives, what would you say, like if you had to name a brief curriculum of sorts, saying if a young person goes through these, what would you're an original educator. I mean, you've done camps which have empowered people. So for 21st century, 2021, what would you name as a curriculum, or what some skills, some perspectives that come to your mind that we should cultivate for sure?
Yeah. Well, as you said, time is changing. My time was very different from what is it today, and it operates very differently. But one thing that is necessary now is to do things that will make people more sensitive to the sufferings of others. We are all small Siddharthas in the palace, and we refused to go out from the palace. And Siddhartha went out and he saw the suffering, and he became Buddha. So there was a journey how Siddhartha became Buddha. So many of us are in a small palace. Intellectually, we may like to do things, but then our heart is not yet bleeding for others. So how to and then this is not going to happen through discussions. This is going to happen through exposure. That is the problem. Discussion is basically an intellectual exercise, and however hard you may try, this will touch the brain. This will not touch the heart. Touching heart is seeing. When thousands of people were dying in the Mediterranean Sea, that small boy's death and that photograph shook the world. You remember that, there was this small, I don't remember his name, but then just one photograph shook the world. Same in Myanmar now, there are some one or two photographs that is shaking up the consciousness of people in different parts of the world, and they say, oh, if this is so bad, then I need to do something. I remember when I was taking 1 lakh people from Gwalior to Delhi, I was discussing with people for months and months about 1 lakh people walking from Gwalior to Delhi. People said, okay, walk, so what? That's so good, cool. But then when they saw people without chapel, with all these torn saris, taking children on their shoulder, and eating one meal and sleeping on the road, I mean, this just shook people to the core, and started becoming milk and sugar and rice and dal. We didn't buy anything afterwards. Once they saw it, it just shook people, and they said, no, this is not acceptable. So one thing is, what we need with young people is the right kind of exposure, so that they take time to go and see the level of deprivation and poverty. It is not to shock them just for the sake of shocking. It's to say, look, sensitivity will come only through exposure. So we need to help. That is one important thing, because in a globalizing world, people have become somewhat middle class, and especially who had this benefit of education, they are from the middle class, and middle class is in the gated buildings, so they don't have this opportunity. They of course see the lady coming and cleaning their floor and washing their plate, but then that doesn't really give the shock.
Yeah.
So one important thing is for us to work with young people and give them that sensitivity by giving them exposure. The second thing is a long-term commitment, which we are doing with this 10 people. Abhishek Bhai, thank you for doing it. A long-term commitment. I have seen many young people coming and going back. I mean, when they are there, they are very excited. They feel something need to be done, etc. But soon you are back into your palace, and you behave differently, and you are faced with other realities in life. So when I am faced with my own reality, why do I care for the reality of others in the Adivasi area or in the villages? So a long-term commitment need to be brought about through, that is an intellectual work, that is through discussion, through interaction with local people, and understanding how a problem can be tackled. How do we stop displacement of Adivasis? Yesterday, I wrote a letter to the new commissioner for ST, that is the scheduled tribe. There is one commissioner now, Harsh, from Indore. So I wrote him telling that, Harshji, you and me know primitive tribes were living in the forest all their life. And the very reason that we call them primitive, Adim Jadi, is because they never had interaction with what you call the
So you were saying
So
primitive.
I was telling you that I was asking why should the primitive tribes prove that they were in the forest before 2005. And what is this? The forest officials always took uh, money from them. The forest officials took honey from them. Forest officials took uh, alcohol from them, and never gave them a receipt for what you call the illegally occupying forest land. Now, what you are saying is, unless you have a paper saying that you are illegally occupying the land before 2005, your land demand will not be settled. So I'm telling him that what insensitivity is this? A large number of primitive tribes who lived in forest for so many years, and they are now being evicted in the name of wildlife sanctuary, in the name of national park, in the name of coal mines, and you don't see a reason why they should be rehabilitated. So why I raise this issue was that's a level of sensitivity that need to come. And the forest official doesn't feel anything bad about it. Collector doesn't feel anything bad about it. People making policies don't feel anything bad about it. Because this huge humanitarian crisis of primitive tribes being pushed into slums is something that we need to really understand. So, what I'm trying to say, the educational system has totally failed in sensitizing people. Educational system, of course, gave us degrees and diplomas, but that didn't make us real human being, kind human being. So, on one side is this long-term commitment with an understanding that things are not going to change just because I participate in a youth camp.
Mm,
I
mm,
participate in NSS camps and go to a village, and lifelong I keep speaking about the village that I visited when I was in college. This is not going to help. This is a lifelong campaign to change the situation. So that is the
mm,
other thing.
mm,
So first is exposure. The second thing is a long-term commitment, and the third one is our coming together to make a mass movement for change.
mm,
It
mm,
has to be non-violent. So young people need to learn deeply about a non-violent process and why non-violence is important, etc. But to understand, look, as long as there is no deeper change in this country at the level of caste, at the level of poverty, at the level of discrimination, it is not fun to live in a country like this. It's not just I making benefit out of it, and I making some fun out of it. But then I need to live in a society that is just, and that deeper feeling, and for that the kind of work. So on one side it is the sensitivity part, on one side it is the clarity part of what I want to do with my life, and the
mm,
third one is the capacity to work for it by risking one's own time and energy, etc.,
mm,
etc.
mm.
So if you need to draw an agenda of at what level you need to work, then I will say you need to work at the sensitivity level, you need to work at the commitment level, and each one of this is a block. It's like you
Mm.
need to take the person through
Then
a complete
exposures. Mm.
process. You can't say just a
Right.
visit will create sensitivity. There's an ongoing thing. Just a visit is not going to create commitment. That is an ongoing thing. And a long-term plan is also something, an ongoing thing. But it is almost like saying, look, let me be the card for the pig. It's like, let me be the manure for the
Mm,
tree to grow.
mm,
And
mm.
I may not be seen, I may not be worshipped, I may not be given all the awards of the world. But why shouldn't I be the card for the paid kind of an
Mm,
approach?
mm.
And that is what young people need to go through. And all our institutions, wherever they are, need to work towards it, giving that uh, three dimensional possibility for our young people to get involved.
Lovely, lovely. Great. That's a great, I would say that's a great direction, a great agenda, Rajaji.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think just to close, I would ask, I think any closing appeals, invitations, calls for action that you have towards young people at this moment. And second question would be, over your organizing journey over the last so many decades, any lessons that you would like to share that we could build further on?
See, the idea on which I am now working I mean, when you uh, when you get old, you get restless. So you need to, you feel like doing something that is big. So at the moment, having closed the Jai Jagat process for a while, what I'm saying is India has, and we need a pan-India movement. Somebody will be successful in a block, somebody will be successful in a district, somebody even at a state level, but that is not going to make a national impact. India being what it is, large, we need a pan-India presence. So when I say we, many of us who think the same way, believe in non-violence, and believe in restriction in terms of how you speak, how you behave, etc. So uh, if we say there are 746 or 47 districts in this country, the first thing is to have at least one or two people in every district. If you want to call a district in Manipur, do you have a friend there? Or in Arunachal Pradesh, do you have a friend there to call and say, look, now, for example, when the people are coming from Myanmar to Mizoram, I wanted to call somebody in Mizoram, but I don't have somebody in Mizoram immediately to call. But I have Rishi in Manipur, so I could call Rishi and say, look, come on, what are you doing? People are coming. Why don't you put a tent up? So this is what you need, pan-India presence, so that you are able to really work when there is crisis, when there is a problem. Second is, can each one of them help us to identify can each one of them help us to identify uh, a group of 10 people, like you are doing 10 in Bombay, 10 people, and this 10 committed people. So I think about 10,000 people across India, thinking people, committed people, they will bring about a change. And that one person can't do it. So you need many people in many parts of the country doing the same thing, with an understanding that we need to bring it into one basket at some point of time for basic change in this country. So recently I gave a call of action whereby we said, okay, let us work towards it. And so that is in my mind at the moment. How do you create a pan-India presence? How do you identify these committed young people? How do you expand the network? And how do we finally act in a way that can bring about change, and real change for the marginalized communities, suffering communities, etc. There are people who are, I support people who work on electoral reforms, judicial reforms, and police reforms and whatnot. Things cannot move only from the bottom. It is very important that things should move from the bottom by organizing people, etc. But this mess that is being created by educated people in the judiciary, in the police department, in the political circle, in the administrative circle, in spite of benefiting from this country so much, in spite of getting so much education at the cost of poor people of this country, you can only create a world of this kind, a country of this kind, is a matter of shame to my mind. So I think on one side, you need to work. I am offering these two possibilities because each one of us will not be comfortable at both levels. Some of you are comfortable to work from the top. Do that with a plan. And some of us will be comfortable to work with the bottom. Let us do that. But let us see where do we meet in terms of creating a just world order. Right? That is a very, very important thing in my mind. Yeah.
Great, lovely, Rajaji. I think that
Thank you.
sounds really lovely. Thank you so much for your time, and
Thank
thank
you,
you so
Abhishek
much for
Bhai.
sharing. And I hope this message reaches a lot of people and that
Yeah.
we're able to create what you're dreaming of. So, with that wish, Jai
Well,
Jagat. Thank you.
thank you. I may not be able to, might not have done justice to all the questions that you asked, but
But there is a lot
yeah,
there for us to
there's
think
a lot
about. So,
that we
thank
can
you. Yes,
we can
yes.
think in this direction. That will be really good. So thank you for all the work you are doing, Abhishek. By
Thank you. Thank you so much.
wonderful work, and
Thank you,
even
Rajaji.
that small 10 people traveling together, I'm sure they will make a change. They will bring about a change, but it can be expanded nationally
Definitely,
and globally.
definitely,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rajaji. Thanks a lot.
Greetings to everybody. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.